Welcome into Before Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, an extension of the 5 on the Floor podcast. We're actually going to have 6 on the floor today. We've added a 6th man. I think that's probably Dutch. No, actually, it's David because I traded him to another team. So he's the 6th man. Dutch is
it happens.
Ethan Skalnick here with you before Pacers Heat Game 3. The Heat are up 2-0 in the series, which at this point kind of feels like a foregone conclusion. Right now, the Bucks are up big. So they're going to go up 2-1 against Orlando. We obviously know that the Philadelphia 76ers funeral is going to be tomorrow night on 5 on the Floor with George Sedano providing the eulogy. They're down 3-0 in the series against Boston, and they decided to cancel practice today because, why would Philadelphia stars want to practice? And then also in the Eastern Conference, we got Toronto up 3-0 against Brooklyn. So pretty much everything's holding to form right now, including this series. I've got on my left David Friedman, the aforementioned Talk About Sports. On my right, Dutch Beak, I guess I'll say it, Dutch Beak, Michael Sonbeek. Beneath me, Alfredo Arteaga from 3 Yards Per Carry, the rest of the network. Next to him, with the new Twitter account, follow him at Brady Hawk. Is it Brady Hawk MIA or 305? 305, right?
305, yeah.
305. In the drip shirt, Brady Hawk. And then, of course, my co-host on 5 on the Floor, Alphonse Sidney. We're both wearing the Bubble Dribble shirts, which you can get on the 5reasonsports.com site. They're there. The shirts are going out the next day. For everybody who was complaining it was taking a month, shirts are going out the next day. I can't promise that, but the last few shirts I've seen, they're out.
You really put your foot down there on that one, huh?
Yeah, now's the time to buy it until I decide to double the price. And Smoot needs to eat. All right, let's get to today's game. Alejandro, do we have the starting lineup yet? No, I don't think so. I think it should be shortly.
Here.
Not yet.
Confirmed
yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're waiting to find out about Jake Crowder and whether or not he's going to be available today. I'll start with you, Alf. Alf from 5 on the Floor, Alf, not Yards, Alf. Is there anything that can change sort of the tenor of this series?
Supposedly Sabonis is coming back to the bubble, so if somehow they stretch it to a 6th game and Sabonis can play, that's huge, right? And I don't see that happening, but if they could, that'd be big. And it's the same thing that I've been saying this whole time. They just need their talent level isn't on par with the Heat. The Heat can have a bad game, and they've had some poor shooting quarters, poor shooting stretches, and they can still win because they're more talented and they play a style that they can make up for mistakes. The Pacers can't make mistakes. The Pacers make mistakes, they're going to lose. So if they have one of these error-free games, and they have those guys that I mentioned before, Sumner, Aaron Holiday, if Victor Oladipo goes off, if T.J. Warren goes back to bubble T.J., like if all that stuff happens, they need like a perfect storm to be able to beat the Heat. And the problem is, can you do that 4 times in 7 games? You can't. Well, right now it's 4 times in 5 games at this point. Right. It's not going to happen. So I don't. That's the only thing that could change the tenor. But how can they do that? It's not possible.
Well, they don't have the home crowd to go back to either. And one of my theories has been that a lot of teams are going to quit down 2-0 because you can't really look forward to the home crowd getting you going. And then at that point, it's like, do we really want to be in this bubble anymore? Let's just get the hell out of here. Brady, I'll go to you next. You made a prediction before Game 2 that I think a few of us shared was that Duncan Robinson was going to go off. There is the starting lineup, and Jay Crowder's in it. So same starting lineup for the Heat: Dragic, Robinson, Butler, Crowder, and Adebayo. You made a prediction before Game 2 that Duncan Robinson was going to go off. Your prediction now is that we're going to see a Bam game because of all the focus on Duncan. Can you get into sort of why that would happen?
Yeah, I just think even if you look back during the season, some of Duncan's worst shooting games are some of Bam's best. So I think that may be because when they start double teaming out on Duncan when he starts getting his rhythm going, it just leaves Bam for the role. So and Duncan's gotten way better in that, even in the bubble, the way he's passing the ball every time Bam's rolling, and he's just developing that side of his game. So I think that this is a Bam game. We haven't really seen him break out on offense, as Spoelstra said, he stick it up where for telling him to be aggressive. But I think this is going to be the game where he's going to be aggressive and take that part of his game to the next level.
We haven't talked a ton about Bam, but Bam's net rating is by far the best on the team through 2 games. It's not close. It's him 1 and Dragic 2 and Butler 3. But Bam's net rating is a plus 30 per 100 possessions. So he's obviously been doing something right. I'll go to you here on this, David. When you look at this series, there wasn't a lot of hype for it coming in. I don't think nationally, and now we have Jalen Rose being shown on television more the other day than the players actually were. I know you were mocking Dan Dockich, which we like to do on there. But again, as you look at the series, it doesn't have buzz, right? Is that just because there's no fans, there's no nothing going? It just feels like they're just playing some basketball games. The Heat are ultimately going to win more of them.
Yeah, if you look around at the other series, they have more of that superstar. Even with Luka going out last night, it's like those teams are playing up and down, up and down. I've been saying to you guys all week, this is like two Floyd Mayweathers going at each other in the sense of the style that they play. The reality is, like, Oladipo is not himself. He wasn't even going to play in the bubble. So you see him before he went out with the eye injury. It looked like he was grabbing at his leg a little bit. I think he's out there more as a decoy, and even though he's playing well-ish, I mean, they're not themselves. So if they were 100%, I think we're talking a different story here. The T.J. Warren thing, he can't be bubble T.J. Warren right now because Jimmy's not going to allow that. They don't have to put that attention on Oladipo. So let Oladipo do whatever he wants to do right now. I don't think he's 100%, obviously.
I almost feel that Oladipo's playing just to say that he played. Right? Doesn't it feel like that?
Yeah.
Like he was getting all that heat for not possibly.
When there was the rumor that
wanted to be there, it just feels like he's going through the motions that he can't be blamed at the end.
That's why I call him Victor Oladipo.
Right. right. That's Oladipo. Right. Exactly. I
mean, look, we're talking as Heat fans how we all want Oladipo. So the idea that the guy that we're seeing playing, this is not him.
No, but David, do we? Like, this is a conversation we've had. Dutch, I'll go to you on this because you were arguing with people about the process on Twitter. We're going to talk about the process a little bit before we go because I want to let Alf have his way with you. But
pause.
Pause. yeah. Well, okay. But do we still? And I say we, you guys, because I'm not allowed to be a fan. Do we still want Oladipo?
Sure.
Why
not? Like, I mean, you can't put the eggs in the basket 100% on Giannis. So, I mean, Oladipo's what, the third best realistic option right now, besides Giannis and Beal?
Well, do we consider Donovan Mitchell realistic? I guess that's the question. I mean,
it's hard to get a guy that's that young to bank on someone like that becoming available because of just team control in itself is just.
Although he's doing Wade tribute dunks in game now. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah,
last week.
that was awesome.
Yeah,
he landed it a little bit better. I saw the comparison.
Yeah, he did. I understand what you're saying. He might be the third best option, but he's also an option that if you're not going to wait till 2021 and you're going to make the trade now, you're going to give up an asset for him. And I just don't know if he's worth an asset. I just keep saying.
Is he a one?
He's had 1 year.
I'm saying I think he's a 2 on a contender.
Right. Well,
I mean, it depends how much you think Oladipo moves the needle.
Right. He could.
He's not Beal.
Right. Alfredo, your thoughts? You've been on here a couple of pregame shows and you've nailed some stuff. So, your thoughts on today?
Okay, you guys saw the Sixers and the Celtics last night, right? Okay, I watched that entire game. I thought that the Sixers. It was great. Although I was watching the game with somebody that was telling me, "Don't you want the Sixers to stretch the Celtics a little bit? You don't want it to be a little bit too easy for the Celtics because you never know the Heat might face them down the road."
I don't think that matters. I mean, they're waiting for Hayward to get back 4 weeks anyway. So.
Well, I watched that game and I thought that the Sixers. They were so overmatched, but they fought like hell. I think this is the pride and professionalism game. I think right now the Pacers are thinking to themselves, you know what, we don't want to get swept. And the reason we don't want to get swept is because we committed to this bubble. We're here away from our families. We're in Disney where we can't leave anywhere. We're just committed to basketball. So we're just going to give it the old college try today. And I think they're going to play their best game today. Will it be good enough? Probably not, but I expect a close game, and I think it's an important game. Like Alf said, Sabonis is back in the bubble. You don't want none of that stuff. You don't want to get extended into 6-7 games because then you might have tired legs because as we just saw, Milwaukee's has had enough of Orlando already. So you don't want tired legs for the next round. You want to win this game. I think this is going to be the best Pacer effort of the series. They lose this game, it's a sweep.
You know what I want to see? Does that Jimmy Butler killer mentality come out in the Heat today? Because we've all, as Heat fans, we've watched them always giving the gentleman sweep, right? A lot of times taking their foot off the gas and when they had control of a situation. I want to see if the Jimmy Butler killer dog mentality comes out and says, let's go out there and step on their throats.
Step on their throats.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's what I would listen. I'm thinking it's going to be a close game, but I would really like to see them come out and just blow their doors off.
Yeah,
and like let's go. Like,
but I don't know if this group has it. I'll say this, and I think this is why Brady's point about Bam is important. I think Bam will be the barometer today. If Bam comes out really aggressive, gets Turner in foul trouble, we obviously know they don't have a lot of bigs, and just sets the tone that way, I think that's a good sign. I am concerned about this one, and not so much because of Indiana increasing their effort, because I don't really know that they want to stay in the bubble. To me, it's because this Heat team, in its short time together, has shown they let down. And they're due for one of those. Okay, I kind of feel like that happened in the last, scrimmage against Memphis. It happened in a couple of the seeding games where you're kind of like, wait, they're not here today. And I have a bad feeling about this one for that reason. I don't know if they're there yet emotionally. And remember, a lot of these guys, and I thought Cooper Moorhead had a good point that this team is kind of unburdened by expectations because their young guys haven't been in it. Their old guys have mostly had playoff success. But I'm a little concerned about Hero and Robinson and some of these younger guys in their first situation who don't really get how hard it is to close out a series. And I think they're going to get smacked in one of these two games.
So we're talking about Hero, but Hero was 4 of 14 last game.
Yes, I know.
So, but it can't get worse than that.
To your point, though, isn't like the game one? I mean, I was only able to half watch game 1 and 2, but to me, it didn't seem like the Heat really even played for like the first 2 quarters of each game. Didn't even play like great, and they still by the fourth quarter was able to control the game. So I mean, you can look at it the other side as the Heat just need to play a complete game, and they're up 3-0. Like
they had their bad game.
We haven't seen even a good like a full 48-minute effort from the Heat yet. And they've been able to control the game.
Well, the Kayas had the numbers today.
I was going to say
their offensive rating in the first half was 102, right?
104.9, second half 127.8.
Right, and their turnovers
cut in half.
Down in the second half.
Yeah. And Indiana's done basically the opposite. If you look at them in the fourth quarters, I think Brogdon and Warren have combined for 9 points in the fourth quarters of both games. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest thing is just if they show up, I think they have a chance in the fourth quarter if Warren and Brogdon show up. But games 1 and 2, they haven't. So I think that's the biggest thing is just – and Miami has shown up in the fourth quarters. So.
Well, I think, Brady, one of the things that Iguodala said yesterday, because he talked to the media, and I thought was interesting, was about Warren, and it gives you insight into how they're playing him. He compared Warren a little to Antoine Jamison, who you're not old enough to remember playing. Neither is Dutch, okay?
No, I remember Antoine. I loved Antoine Jamison.
But 4 of us are.
Anton.
Okay, 4 of us are. And Antoine, one of the nicest people in the NBA, by the way. But Antoine, he talked about how crafty he is inside the paint and some of the things that he can do. And I feel like the Heat have done a really good job at forcing TJ to be a passer when he doesn't want to be a passer. And so and keeping him out of those areas. And so I think that'll continue. I guess my concern is more, again, about Miami's letdown than it is really anything the Pacers can do. I don't know that this Indiana team is really – Brogdon has shot really poorly through 2 games. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't continue, to be honest. They've done a really good job on him. They put length on him at times, and that seems to bug him. So I just wonder about the Heat's – I don't know. To me, this is about Bam's aggression early, and also, do Goran and Jimmy, as kind of drive them to it. I want to get to the other series with you guys a little bit. As we go forward, we talked a lot about Philadelphia, but does Boston worry you as if the Heat was to get past Milwaukee? Does Boston worry you as a team that could go to the finals right now?
Yes.
Without Hayward.
Yes. I'll start it off by saying this: I would not bet against the Heat against any team in the East except Boston. Boston's probably the only team that I would put my money on to beat the Heat in a series. Every other series, I got to pick them. I think Toronto's a pick 'em. and I think Milwaukee's a pick 'em. They're not a favorite in either. I think they're underdogs against everybody that's left after this round, hypothetically. But against Boston, I do make them a decided underdog.
Why? Is it the way they're playing, or is it the matchup we saw during the season?
I think it's
They did beat them in the
Boston has so many options offensively down the stretch that it'll be hard for the Heat to just focus their defense on one or two guys. So they're going to have to deliver kill shots early in games, go up 15, and then just ride it the rest of the way to win games against Boston, because I think it's a 50-50 proposition whether they can close them out in close games with 5 minutes left, 1 or 2 points either way.
I agree.
So many options, man.
Yeah, I agree with Alfredo there. One of the things that Spo has always been really good at is completely eliminating a player, right? Mm-hmm. He will take a player, and that's why they have such success against the Bucks. Because if you take Giannis out, now what's your hope is Chris Middleton? Like it's a really good gamble on his part. You take out Tatum, Walker and Brown are going to kill you. You take out Walker, Tatum and Brown. Like, come on, like they have three really, really, really good scoring options and a bunch of other guys that can shoot and play really hard. But to me, Boston ain't getting past Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Without
that's
Hayward, does Hayward matter either way?
No,
a 4-week time frame would put Hayward back sometime during the Eastern Conference Finals.
They could have Larry Bird in there. No, I'm just joking. They can't. They're not getting past Toronto. Toronto is playing out of their minds right now. I mean, their defense is amazing. Like they have the bodies to throw at Boston, and they're not getting past Toronto. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think Boston is. I agree with what he said. I think Boston's going to give the Heat more trouble than Toronto would, but I don't see Boston beating Toronto. I think Toronto has the edge over Boston in a 7-game series just due to their physicality and, like he said, their defense. I just don't think they match up well with them in a 7-game series, especially without Hayward. So,
all right, let's do this then. Top ahead. 30 seconds. Who comes out of the East, Dutch? Wait, let's
Toronto.
David?
Boston.
Brady?
I think Toronto.
Alf and Alf?
Toronto.
Yeah, I have Toronto also. So nobody. So our producer Alejandro's trying to push it. Nobody has Milwaukee. Most dominant. No. I don't either. But most dominant team in the league this year, historically dominant. Actually, if you break down their numbers, and they've gotten themselves right against Orlando. Why? Is it nobody trusts Chris Middleton? Is that really it?
And I think I'll give you a sneak preview of my pick for the next round, but I think the Heat is going to push them to at least 7 games. So, if not even beat them. So, I think they'll get pretty stretched from that. And if you've watched them so far in the bubble, they either show up or they don't. They can't do that against a team like Toronto. Toronto will beat them.
I think the bubble thing has impacted them the most. I think Milwaukee might be hurt most from this, just for a lot of different reasons. One, just being I think if they were playing regularly, I think that Milwaukee would. I'd probably pick Milwaukee over Toronto if it was going regular. Mm-hmm. But I think in the bubble situation, Toronto's a hard-nosed team that they're gonna play no matter what, just like Miami. I just think that they're gonna beat them in this circumstance.
All right,
and I think Denver is the team that affects the most. Denver with that home court advantage with the Mile High situation. That gets eliminated completely. So that team
but they wouldn't have had it through the whole playoffs, so that's the only difference.
No, but their home games is a clear advantage there.
I know, but Milwaukee losing it throughout the whole time. By the way, best comment that came in was that Chris Middleton is a millennial John Salmons, which is a perfect, perfect comment.
That's pretty good.
The great John Salmons of
Another thing about Toronto is that Marc Gasol is one of these guys that is capable of completely morphing himself into something that he hasn't been before, and he can morph himself into some type of stretch 5 that renders all those dinosaurs that the Bucks have useless. And
who guards Giannis for Toronto? Siakam
and OG.
And OG. Mm-hmm. A lot of doubles.
Yeah, and they deny him the ball, and then they use their guards to crash down to keep him from catching it where he wants to catch it, which is usually high post.
Yes, I don't want to sound crazy, but how different, and we're talking about why teams can shut down Milwaukee. How different, besides the obvious, is Giannis from Ben Simmons in terms of they're not much of a threat. And yes, Giannis shoots threes, and it's a little bit more than Ben Simmons. But don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to compare. I don't want to sound stupid, although I do. But the general idea of why they can be stopped, because you can stop them. They can't, when you make them become shooters, you depend on Chris Middleton to be a number 1A or a 1B. He's not that guy.
Well, Chris Middleton's Tobias Harris. Right.
And that's what I was saying to you guys earlier. Tobias Harris, to me, is a good number 2, but he needs a 2B with him. He's not a number 1.
Tobias Harris is like a number 4 or 5. Or so. Like, if he's your number 2 or 2B, you're not a good team. Right,
Alp, you know who Sedano compared Tobias Harris to, and I think there's a lot of similarity. Not in terms of playing style, but mentality. Eddie Jones.
Yep, I was about to say that.
Eddie would give you numbers, but there are certain guys when they get. The 3 players I have the most concerns about in the playoffs in this setting, and it was so important to their teams, are Paul George, Chris Middleton, and Tobias Harris. They've all got the same damn mentality. They got the opposite of Jimmy Butler's mentality. Like all 3 of them. Okay, like Paul George going on social media to say he doesn't care about what people are saying on social media is just after Dame basically shoved it in. Why do you go after Dame Lillard, who has the Jimmy Butler mentality?
Hey, but what a change! What a change! Because if you remember the Big 3 days, Paul George showed some dog. He would fight LeBron for those 6 or 7 games to lose to them.
LeBron has a little of that passive aggressive in him too. So he would go at LeBron, but it's like he's after he went at Dame Lillard, he's like been rendered totally useless. But those 3 guys and Tobias Harris, like Jamal Mashburn and Eddie Jones had that mentality with the Heat. It was like they were really good players until it mattered.
But is it fair to put PG in the conversation with those other 2 guys? And that's what I said to you. Tobias Harris is not like Paul George. We look at as a top tier guy that got paired with Kawhi, where Tobias is not that.
But he's paid like it.
Tobias Harris is
bumpy. Let's just say bumpy.
Tobias Harris is Billy Owens without a handle.
Billy Owens had that same mentality, the Eddie Jones mentality.
Ethan, who was Shaq and Wade talking about that didn't want the ball?
Eddie.
Okay, that's what I was.
Eddie.
That's because people who don't know that story, Shaq told us.
I hate to do it because I loved Eddie personally, and I fought those trades, and that's the one Sedano still throws in my face. But the thing was, Eddie just didn't want it when it mattered. He just didn't. And Mash was kind of the same way. They had a history of those guys, and then they had the Wade mentality, obviously the Jimmy mentality, which is totally different, and the hero mentality, which is totally different. And now they've got another guy in Duncan Robinson who seems to have that kind of killer thing. But yeah, they've had some guys. Let's be honest. Chris Bosh had that mentality a little bit too. A little bit. He had to. I mean, remember, Hibbert in his head.
Portland, Atlanta.
Right?
Oh, Hibbert.
Hibbert and KG both got in his head. Yeah. He didn't want to get asked about him anymore. All right. Final thing, and then we're going to go. The most impressive team in the bubble to all of you so far. Alf. Floor Alf first.
Miami and Toronto. I think they've played with the most playoff. Actually, you know what? Denver as well. So I picked 3, which is
Denver's down 1. No,
Jazz.
Denver?
You mean Jazz?
No, I meant Jazz. I meant the Utah Jazz. I honestly get them confused. It's just 2 very white
irrelevant
NBA.
They all look alike now. What the hell?
They all look alike. I didn't say that. No, but I think when you talk about who's been playing with like playoff intensity, I think Miami and Toronto are at the top of that list, as well as Utah. Like Utah's just trying to kill people out there. So yeah, those guys, those are the teams that really have stood out to me.
What about Houston, Alfredo? I mean, what do you make of it?
Not really. I don't like Houston that much. The 2 best teams in the bubble have been Toronto and Miami, but the team that played the best game in the bubble was last night, and that was the Clippers. The Clippers showed who they were for most of the year this year, and who I would pick to win it all. To be honest with you, because they have this knack for just grinding you down, and you think you're in the game, and then you look at the scoreboard and you're down 12.
But that's Kawhi's the best. Playoff Kawhi is the best player in the sport right now.
Probably, yes.
Playoff Kawhi.
I would agree with that, and I would say that probably Kevin Durant is the best playoff scorer.
Right.
So he's not around, so obviously Kawhi is the best player. So yeah, I like the Clippers.
Kawhi not in Toronto anymore, by the way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Vodka.
I could see something like that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. Kawhi defeating the team that he won a championship with in the finals. That makes a lot of sense.
That was my pick, was a Toronto Clippers series.
Now, I think the NBA would hate. Can you imagine a Raptors Clippers NBA finals? Like, that's not what the NBA wants.
With playoff P? Probably not. Probably not. Brady, can Houston win the West with their style?
I don't think so. I just don't think the teams that they have to go through, like both LA teams, they don't fit them. Going against AD or going against Kawhi, he's going to take advantage of PJ Tucker and all those different things. I don't think they match up well against neither of those teams, and I don't think, even though Harden had time off and got the rest, that maybe he'll be able to step up in the playoffs. I still don't think him or Westbrook are going to be able to overcome all those playoff, struggles.
All right, Dutch.
I honestly think
I'm going to switch you here real quick because I want to give Alf a chance to go at you a little bit. Could you please defend the process?
He's not have his way.
Could you have his way? Could you defend the process in 30 seconds or less?
Yes, I can the process in 30 seconds or less, because what's happening right now with the Philadelphia Sixers, as I said on Twitter, they are an absolute disaster, but it has nothing to do with the process because the NBA kicked Hinkie out, they forced him out, and Hinkie would never have ever done anything that would have put the Philadelphia 76ers in their position that they are right now, because he would have never made the Fultz trade. He probably would have never traded for Tobias or Max Tobias. So no, I can defend the process because the process has nothing to do with the disaster of the Philadelphia 76ers.
All right, the floor has been ceded to the Heat Twitter president. You close.
The process does not work because it's not sustainable. The NBA, the league, the fans, and the players will never sit back and just allow a team to lose on purpose.
But that has nothing to do with the actual structure.
I let you talk. Sure, listen, there's a lot of things that work in theory. Communism works in theory. There's a lot of like get off of this theory crap. Listen, the problem is the process is a mathematical equation that you're doing, but the issue on the other side is there's human beings involved, and that's the problem with this whole thing. Stop treating sports like a math problem. It doesn't work that way. Like there's fans, there's players, there's front offices, there's league execs that don't want to see a team tanking and telling people and actually promoting the fact that we're losing on purpose. It does not work. It's not a sustainable thing. Now, there's theory and there's real world. I live in the real world. I pay a lot of bills. I don't know what you do, Dutch, but that shit does not work in real life.
It does work. It does work. It worked. It worked.
Where is this going?
But they had two all NBA players out of it. It's not the process's fault that Colangelo's terrible.
They got two, but they also, and I know this was Colangelo, right? Whose wife was then going after players on Twitter. But but
yes, another human factor.
Another human factor.
Because people are weird.
Project. But they also traded Jason Tatum in the first round pick to get
that's Colangelo. That's Colangelo.
Markelle Fultz before he turned the
that was all Colangelo though.
I know.
Joel Okafor, Nerlens Noel, Michael Carter Williams, Markelle Fultz.
Okay,
that's the problem.
They sold high on Michael Carter Williams, like
Drew Holiday for Nerlens Noel.
Okay, they sold high on Michael Carter Williams, which was smart, and then they got the pieces. They drafted the pieces that got them Jimmy Butler. And then they had two all NBA players come out of the process.
They're about to get swept. And they're about to get swept.
Because one of them is Ben
came in and backed Tobias Harris.
One of them is Ben Simmons. He can't shoot.
All right, that's it.
He plays basketball. He can't shoot a basketball.
That's it. Alf wins. David, who wins today? Heat or Pacers?
Heat in 3.
Heat by 3. Heat in 3. Brady.
Heat in 3. It's over today.
Brady.
I think Heat win by like double digits.
Alfredo.
Heat win by 3 points. Somebody hits a late bucket. Give it to Jimmy. Jimmy in a jumper ices the game late.
Alf.
Heat win by 7.
Dutch, Sixers win today? No, just kidding. Who wins today?
Heat. I had this as a gentleman's sweep from the start, so Heat.
I'm real close to picking the Pacers today because I feel one of those letdown games coming. I'll say the Heat win by 4. I wouldn't take them to cover today. All right, that's it. We'll be back. Toledo will be back after the game. You know him as Tropical Blanket, as will Greg Sylvander. Thanks to Dutch. Thanks to David, Taco. Thanks to Brady Hawk, 305. Thanks to Alfredo Arteaga. Talk soon.